of course, he has. I don't know if it's brown or black. His hair's long, and of course, his arms reach to his knees. The sighting doesn't last more than 5 to 7 seconds because his stride is so long that he crosses my yard and into the brush in seconds. But it's still long enough to see him.
Out in the woods, shadows creep slow. Footprints deep where no man should go. Cold winds howl through hollers and brooks. Whispers of Bigfoot in the way it looks. Myths, monsters, and mullets in the night. Under a pale moon, strange glowing light. Truth out there like a blade it cuts. Myths, monsters, and mullets run amok.
Welcome back to Myths, Monsters, and Mullets, the show where the strange, the unexplained, and the weird take center stage, and where the people behind the encounters matter just as much as the encounters themselves. We're not just here to talk about what was seen. We're here to understand who saw it, how it changed them, and why it still matters. Before we get started, quick shout out to our supporters over on Patreon. If you'd like to help keep the show independent, ad-free, and unapologetically weird, head on over to our Patreon. You'll find members episodes, early access to all the public episodes, and bonus material you won't see or hear anywhere else. If you've had an encounter or something strange that you've just never been able to explain, I want to hear from you. Email me at mythsandmullets@gmail.com. That's mythsandmullets@gmail.com. Your experience could be featured on a future episode. It's coming up fast. Mark your calendars, June 6th, 2026. I'll be speaking at the Arkansas Cryptid Fest in North Little Rock, Arkansas. If you're into cryptids, folklore, and listening to great speakers, that's where you need to be. If you haven't yet, make sure you've hit that subscribe button. Make sure you're following me on all your favorite podcast platforms. Give this episode a like, leave a comment, leave us a review. That'll help us with the algorithm, and that's the best way to grow the show. Make sure you check the descriptions on all my episodes. Down below, you're going to find a list of all my favorite podcasts, from Nevermore Hollows, Drunken Cryptids, Chumming with the Spirits, Ghost Gossip, and so much more. And while you're over there listening to their shows, leave them a comment and tell them John sent you. And with that, let's start the show. And welcome back to Myths, Monsters, and Mullets. I'm your host, John Methelkamp. On tonight's show, we have Janet. And this guest is going to be completely different than what I normally do. Most of my guests know that when they come on my show, I don't want to hear their encounters beforehand. Well, Janet came to me as a recommendation from the Cryptid Creatures Show, friends of the show, Cryptid Creatures Show. They got a hold of me and said, hey, we've got a guest we think you would really enjoy talking to. And I said, that's good enough for me. I don't even want to know what kind of encounter she had. So I reached out and Janet said, yeah, I'll do it. So Janet, why don't you introduce yourself to my audience?
Hi, I'm Janet.
Okay. We are, Janet does not want to give out her last name, which is fine, as we all know. But Janet, you were on the Cryptid Creatures Show. What kind of encounter did you have?
Bigfoot.
Bigfoot, my favorite. So, how about this? Can you tell us where the encounter happened?
It's Eastern Kentucky.
My family is from Eastern Kentucky.
Really?
Yeah, my family is out of Irvin and Betaville.
Oh, know that well.
Yeah. And that area down there, it's very
Scotchy.
Bigfoot. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
lot of woods and a lot of hills, and uh,
Yes,
our friend Jason Kinsey was down in that area, shot a documentary not far from there. So,
a lot of people have.
yeah, yeah. So, Janet, why don't you just tell us what was happening, and let's get into your encounter.
All right. I live on a large farm that has been in my family for over 300 years. And 4 years ago, something happened that completely changed my life. And that was a one night I saw a Bigfoot walk through my backyard.
Really?
Yes, but it didn't happen suddenly. This was 10 years leading up to actually seeing the Bigfoot.
So you were having other things happening beforehand before you
Oh,
actually
yeah.
saw it.
My Bigfoot story really started in the early 60s when my brother and I found a barefoot trackway in the snow. And when we asked our grandfather about it, he said, it's rabbits. Well, there were rabbit tracks, but I knew that that was not a rabbit track. I didn't know what it was. And I actually just forgot about it. And about 15 years ago, I moved back to the family farm to live permanently. And I ran across a video about Bigfoot one day. And it reminded me of Bigfoot. So my interest was renewed. I'd always been a believer. I'd always been interested. But I dived deep into research. I found all kinds of researchers that I followed. I learned all I could about Bigfoot. And the more I studied it, the more I thought, why wouldn't they live here? This is in the Appalachian Mountains. It's 90% wooded where I live. My farm is 90% wooded. It's isolated. So the more I studied, the more I thought they have to be here. They just have to. One night, it was in the summer, I had my windows open, and there were coyotes howling outside. Then this other sound came through, and it was a scream, howl, very, very deep. And the coyotes quit. Probably lasted for about 10 seconds, and it was so deep and so loud that I could feel the vibrations of it in my body.
So when you were
And then,
listening, or when you started like researching and stuff, I'm sure you came across other recordings
oh,
of
absolutely.
supposed.
I knew what it was.
Okay. Was
I
there any was there
knew.
any that what you heard resembled?
Oh, lots. Lots of it. That's why when I heard it, I knew what it was.
Yeah.
And it just, I said, I knew they were here. I knew we had to have Bigfoot here. And this was like 10 years ago. So after I heard it that one time, I started doing more field research, walking on the farm, looking for tracks, looking for bedding. And gradually, I started recognizing wood knocks. And occasionally I would hear a whoop. And one other time, I heard another scream like that. It wasn't as close, but I did hear it.
Hmm.
One winter, there was a trackway in my yard. So I knew they were around.
The
It just,
trackway that you saw when you were younger, you said it was your dad told you that it was rabbits, right?
it was my grandfather.
Your grandfather?
Mm.
Um, like, how big was this rabbit?
It was very big. It was uh, 2 or 3 times the size of a man's print, but it was barefoot.
Holy
You know,
cow.
it wasn't a farmer's, you know, footprint that had a big boot on. This was a barefoot print.
Wow. Wow. Do you think that your grandfather, um, just told you that it was rabbits and knew what it was, or did he just not believe in Bigfoot?
I have wondered that because a lot of the old timers knew about Bigfoot. They didn't know what they were. They just thought they were a different type of clan, a
Yeah.
mountain people maybe. I
Yeah, and
don't
you
know if he
hear that
did or not.
description a lot, like wild man of the woods or,
Exactly.
you know, um, feral people and things like that. I know there are feral people. I know that there are people that live out in the mountains, but
Right.
I think a lot of times the older people, they didn't know what to call it, and that was the closest
Right.
thing that they could come up with was it's gotta be some of those wild people that live out there.
Exactly. I don't know. I have wondered that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Wow.
But as a farmer, he was out and about all the time. And surely, maybe he had seen these footprints before and just dismissed it as something unusual.
Right.
I don't know.
Okay. Sorry, I had to ask that question because
Oh no,
I
that's
think that
fine.
a lot of people, um, like you said, the old timers, I think they just didn't like talking about it.
They didn't know what it was.
Right.
And you're right. They did not talk about it.
Yeah. Especially down there. Like
It-
I think in Ohio, which is where I grew up, I think it's more acceptable and I think people do talk about it a little bit more. But, you get down into Kentucky, Tennessee, places like that, you just don't talk about the weird stuff that you see in the woods.
no, no, you do not.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So we fast forward and you find this trackway again in your yard.
Right.
Wow.
And it was odd because it had snowed and it was like 0 degrees. And I saw the trackway at night and it was too cold to go outside. So the next morning I went outside and it came down my driveway and walked about halfway through my yard and just disappeared. It didn't lead anywhere. It just stopped.
Wow. Was there any
And I had
trees around that it like maybe could have climbed up a tree?
nope,
Wow.
nothing. It just stopped.
Wow.
So that was, I still wonder about it. But okay, so I knew the Bigfoot was around. And I started, and this is, years past. This is probably 5 or 6 years ago. Now, I started seeing X's were made out of trees on the hillside across from my house. And, I said, wow, that's interesting. Then I noticed that I would find smaller X's around my yard. Now, when I say my yard and my backyard, it's the yard is pretty big, but it's surrounded by wilderness. The yard goes straight down into brush and then trees. So I would find X's, like maybe along my driveway. Then one day, there was a glyph in my driveway. It was in the shape of a star. It was very intricately woven together, different sizes of branches. And it was 3 to 4 feet wide. It was big.
Holy cow.
And in the middle of it was a golf ball.
So it was like the golf ball was placed in the middle of it, or was it wove into it?
It was placed in the middle, directly in the middle. So I looked at it and looked at it and looked at it. And I thought it was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. I took pictures and pictures and pictures. Then I realized where the golf ball had come from. There was a golf ball in my driveway that I had been driving over, and I'd probably driven over it 100 times and mashed it into the ground. I looked at the hole where the golf ball had been, and you could see where a finger had dug the golf ball out of the hole.
Really?
And placed it in the glyph. That glyph stayed for 3 or 4 days, and then it was taken away. So at this point, I started gifting. There was a stump that was beside my garage that was next to the brush that led into the woods. So I started gifting, and I would, gift fruit and vegetables, and sometimes I would receive a gift back. It would be maybe a few rocks or a few sticks or a little arrangement of something. But this continued for another year or two. Same thing. Then the night that actually changed my life was the night that I saw him walk across my yard. I had gone into the kitchen, and my kitchen has a bank of windows that looks in the backyard, and there is a street light at the edge of my garage, so you can see in the backyard. I was sitting at the table, which I did frequently because you never know what's going to walk along the backyard. And something ran past. And it startled me. I didn't know what it was. At first, I thought it was a deer or an elk. But it was bipedal. And then I thought, well, is someone lurking around my house? The weather was too bad. It was rainy. It was foggy. Then I thought, well, maybe it was a bear, or maybe it was a ghost. I've seen ghosts before. Maybe it was a ghost. Or was it a Bigfoot? I didn't know. I sat in that window the rest of the night. I sat in that window every night for several weeks. And then I got to thinking, maybe it was nothing. Did I just imagine it? Until one night, a Bigfoot walked through my backyard, and I saw him, and it was a Bigfoot. That was 4 years ago. And since then, I have seen him 30 or 40 times.
Really?
Yes.
Holy cow.
Yes.
So you've probably gotten some pretty good detail off of this thing.
Yes, I have.
Can you describe this creature?
Sure. He's very tall. The door on my garage, he walks past this door on his way into the brush, and he's several feet taller than the door. So I think he's 9 or 10 feet tall.
Holy cow.
Of course, he has. I don't know if it's brown or black. His hair's long, and of course, he has his arms reach to his knees.
Hmm.
The sighting doesn't last more than 5 to 7 seconds because his stride is so long that he crosses my yard and into the brush in seconds.
Wow.
But it's still long enough to see him.
Right. 5 to 7 seconds is actually a long time. I mean, for those listening, count it out. You know, if you count out one
Exactly.
Mississippi or 2 Mississippi, 5 to 7 seconds is a long time, and you can get a lot of detail in 5 to
Yeah.
7 seconds.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it got to I didn't watch every night. It got not, I won't say common, but it just became kind of the norm to see him go by. And I see him from, I've measured it from where he walks, and it's about 12 feet away with a window between us.
That's friggin' close.
12 feet. Yes, it is close. Yes, it is.
Holy cow.
Right. And years passed, and my son, I would always tell him when I had a sighting, and he noticed a pattern. It was when there was high solar activity or there was a storm front coming in, I always had a sighting.
Huh.
After he noticed this, I started following the solar weather. And it's true. Every solar activity, I 100% had a sighting.
So I'm making notes. Sorry, I'm not ignoring you. When you see me looking down, I'm taking notes because
No, that's
questions to
fine.
ask later. So you say, you know, it's you're noticing it with the solar patterns.
Yes.
You said earlier that the trackway just went and disappeared.
Yes.
Where do you stand on these creatures being more than just flesh and blood?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, because you know, what you're talking about high EMF, things like that from the
Yeah.
solar flares and things like that,
Yes.
possibly thinning the veil.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
One of the things I had written down here, you keep saying he.
I just assumed it was he.
Okay. I did that. That's where I was going. I didn't know if
Right.
maybe you
Right.
could see things,
Nope.
but
Haven't seen anything. That was
okay.
just my assumption.
Okay.
But because of his size.
Right. Right. And then a lot of people, they know when they're female because
Right.
they have breasts or whatever.
Right. Right.
So if you're not seeing that, I get it's safe to assume that it's a male.
Right. Right.
The X's that you've seen, what do you make of those? Do you think they're like boundary markers?
I do. I think they're markers of some kind.
'Cause you said it was along,
And
like, your driveway, right?
some of them smaller ones were.
Mhm.
The two huge ones that were on the hillside, they were there for probably a couple years, and then they were gone.
Huh. Do you have any cameras around your house?
I do not.
Okay.
I don't want to run them off.
Well,
You
you
know,
know where
I've
I'm
walked
going because
I
you've been listening and know
no,
what people
I
thought.
know that that's the way to get rid of them, and that's not
Right.
what I want to do. And for years, I walked around the farm talking to them, and when I was out in the yard, and I would say, "You're safe here. You're welcome here. I'm your friend." And I've probably said it thousands of times. So I would never put up cameras because I wouldn't want to have him go away.
Right. Right. You said you
2
you
years ago,
had a gifting site on this
yes,
stump, and you said you were leaving food, correct?
yes,
I'll just come out and say it. I don't recommend giving food, but to each their own. I mean, if it's never been a problem with you, that's fine. I wouldn't do it. Have you ever noticed that when you weren't able to leave food, that activity increased or anything like that?
no,
Okay. Okay.
no. And it wasn't constant leaving food. It was
Okay.
just the occasional gift.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think that the glyphs left in my yard, it was him saying that, "Hi, I'm here. Hello, I'm here."
Right. What do you happen to know? Because I don't. I was trying to think what Native American tribes were in that area.
Cherokee. I'm sure there were others,
Yeah.
but there was for sure Cherokee.
Okay. The reason I ask, I've had other guests suggest that whatever tribes were in your area originally, that the the Sasquatch in that area understand that language. So I've
Right.
always wondered if, you know, in your situation where you're trying to make contact with them, if you were able to maybe find somebody who can speak Cherokee, to maybe even just make a recording of them saying, "Hey, I'm your friend," whatever, to see what would happen. I don't know. It's just a side quest in my mind right now.
Uh, I'm pretty sure they understand us.
Yeah, I mean, they might. I've never actually seen one in person. I've had some weird things that I believe were Sasquatch
Mhm.
encounters, but I've never seen one. Never had an interaction with one. So when I meet somebody like you that's actually seen one and is having these interactions with them, I get excited.
Good,
So
good.
so if I'm interrupting you, it's just because I'm excited, and I apologize.
No, I feel free to. I like that. 2 years ago, when we had the big Aurora event, I didn't see the Aurora, but I knew I'd have a sighting. So I was watching for him that night. And he came by, and he seemed to walk slower that night. And he turned and looked at me.
Really?
I saw his eyes, he saw my eyes. We made contact. He looked at me and then just walked on. It's the first time I had seen his face, and he does not look like a monster. He looks like a man.
Really?
Yes. There is nothing about him that looks like a monster.
When you say it looks like a man, um, can does it look like me? or does it look like?
No, no. He looks more like a man than, say, a gorilla. He doesn't look anything like an ape. He his face is brown. He does not have hair covering his face. He has a long beard like a man. He has deep set eyes, but he does not have the really conical head. It's only slight. But yeah,
What about the
that's
nose?
it's big, it's broad, but it's not enormous.
You hear sometimes people say it has kind of that aboriginal, like the Aborigines from, Australia, the wide nose like that. Is that what you're talking about?
Sort of. It's not hugely wide.
Okay.
It's just slightly wide. It's wider than, let's say yours,
Okay.
or, the normal man.
Huh.
But it's not ape-like.
What about the mouth?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about the mouth.
Some people say like their mouth almost looks like Pac-Man, like it's wider than it should be.
I don't know. I honestly, I didn't even look at his mouth. I mostly just looked at his eyes.
What about the hair on its head? Is it like mine, like where it would flow backwards,
It
or
it does. Yes, it does. And it's long.
about the hairline? Is it like big forehead, or does it come down
No,
to the
no,
eyebrows,
no,
or
no. It's not a huge forehead.
okay.
The brows are prominent, but the forehead is not very wide until the hair starts.
Okay. Wow. Could you see
So that was
ears?
I did not see ears.
Okay. Some people say the
So
hair
that
covers the ears. Some people say they see ears.
I think it does cover his ears because
Okay.
I didn't see ears.
Okay. And some people say that their ears are a little smaller in comparison to like ours, like
Right, right.
proportions
I
are smaller. So
I, I
I
don't
don't know.
know.
I don't know. Wow. Wow. When it's walking, um, can you see its hands?
Yes, I can.
Does it have hair on its hands?
I don't think so.
Okay. Okay.
I don't think so. That his hands are brown
Okay.
because when he walks, he swings his arms, and I see the hands. There may be hair on the top, but I really haven't noticed.
Okay. Well, it'd be kind of like humans. You can have really hairy
Absolutely.
arms and
Absolutely.
not very much on your hands. I mean, that's
Right.
yeah. Wow. Wow. Have you ever seen the feet?
I have not seen the feet.
Okay.
No.
Huh. Wow. About how about the leg?
I
Have you
have
seen
seen
like
the
where the
leg.
knee joint is?
Yes, I have. I have. And he has extremely muscular legs. Extremely muscular.
Is the proportions of the leg like a human?
Yes, they are,
Okay.
but just a lot thicker.
Right. Huh. Wow. Um, is the hair on its body, does it cover its chest?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Is the hair the same length all over its body?
No, I don't think it is. No, I don't think so. I think it's a little thinner, maybe on the shoulders and back. No, I don't think it's all one length.
A lot of people say they have like a mane, or a
Right.
luscious mullet like mine.
Yeah,
Uh,
right.
and then the body hair tends to be the same length all over, except for maybe it's thinner in areas like you said. Like
Yeah,
some people say the chest
exactly.
or the abdomen.
Yeah,
Okay, you're saying it's a little thinner on the back.
I think so.
Okay, are you always seeing this at roughly the same time of day?
No,
Hmm.
I've seen it. I've never seen him in full daylight, but I've seen him at dusk, at dawn, in the middle of the night, at every time
Yeah,
in the evening.
well, that's what you hear. That if you're going to have a sighting, most of the time it is dawn or dusk. Those twilight hours, things like
Right.
that. Um, has it ever been um ornery?
No, I have never been frightened. And I'm an old woman that lives alone, and I have never been frightened
Hmm.
ever. I I I think he's just kind.
Yeah. Do you, do you feel like he's the only one in the area?
I know he is not.
Okay. So that means you've either seen or at least heard other ones.
Yes, I have. And I will flash forward to this past August. And this is after years of sightings. It was this past August. He s- I was watching for him. Do you know about Mindspeak?
Yes, I've had some people on that say they've heard a voice that's just kind of projected into their head.
It's the most bizarre thing. I had this voice come into my brain and it said my family. And he walked by then and a smaller one was behind him carrying a small child.
Really?
I was so I was too shocked to say anything back. I was shocked. And they simply walked past. That's all.
Huh.
So the next time I saw him, I spoke to him first. And I said, "Thank you for bringing your family. Was that your mate and your child?" And he said, "No, my sister and her child."
Wow.
Then I said, "My name's Janet. What is your name?" And he said, "Umber,
Unber?
Umber."
Huh.
And his sister's name was Ithena or Ibea or something that started with an I. And the child's name it was Leaf.
Wow. I thought you were going to throw me a
So
curveball and say his name was like Francis.
no, no, no. It's Mindspeak is the most bizarre thing. It is. You just can't even imagine how bizarre it is.
So when you hear this voice, is it is it his voice? Or are you hearing your own voice?
I don't know. I've wondered that too. It's not, no, it isn't my voice. And I don't know. if it's his voice or just his projection of what he wants to say.
Right. That would be weird. It would be weird, hearing, because if it's not your voice, because like I have an inner monologue, when I'm thinking, I hear it in my voice. It would be
Mm.
weird to hear a different voice in my head.
It's very strange. It's very strange. So occasionally when he would come by, I would ask him questions. I try not to ask too many questions. But I asked if he was the leader. And he said, no, my grandfather. And I warned him one time about, it was almost hunting season. And and he said that they knew about it, and they avoided people. I know where they live. I'm 100% sure that I know where they live. There is a hillside that's not super close to my house, but there's a broad meadow, and then there's a creek, and there's a very, very steep hillside that is riddled with caves. And I am 100% sure that that's where they live.
Earlier, you had said that you felt that they were interdimensional.
I do.
If that's the case, why would they live in the caves? I'm just playing devil's advocate for a moment.
I think that they have that capacity, but they are still very much a flesh and blood person.
Right.
They they live in family groups. They're just trying to live, and they have to live somewhere. I think that they can, when they need to, they can go someplace else. Or I also think they utilize portals.
I've heard that too. Yeah, and that was kind of where that line of questioning was going, to see where you stood, because there are different trains of thought of the interdimensional part of it. Some
Right.
people think that they don't live here, they live somewhere else, and they just pop into existence here for a little bit and then they go back.
Right. Right.
There's other people that feel the same way that you do, that they have this ability to travel, or
Yeah.
make themselves not be able to be seen,
Right.
and it toes that line of the interdimensional. So
Yeah.
okay, yeah. So that was where my line of questioning was.
Yeah.
Wow. Have you ever asked him about that?
No, I've not. Like I said, I'm afraid to ask too much. I don't want to be pushy about it.
Right.
One time, I think it was in the fall, I was outside. I think there was a super moon or something. Anyway, I was sitting in my front yard waiting for the moon to come up. And the moon came up, and I looked at it. And then as I was walked around my house back to the patio, he came walking through the backyard, and we acknowledged each other. But that's the first time that I had seen him with not having a wall between us. And he seemed so much larger. I was not afraid. I'm never afraid.
I'm going to be honest with you. I think if I saw one that big without a wall between me and them, I might poop my pants.
I might, I might, a lot of people I'm sure feel that way. I might have been afraid had I not been seeing him for so long.
Right. Right.
And had I known that I did not have anything to fear from him.
Right.
But that is my crazy Bigfoot story.
I don't think it's crazy. I think it's great. I think it's great. Wow.
I think it is just amazing and fascinating, and I want to share it with people
Right.
because it's so extraordinary. You have all these so-called, researchers that run around in the hills or wherever, knocking on trees and, searching for Bigfoot. How many Bigfoot have any of them ever seen?
Right.
Have they seen 30 or 40? I don't think so.
Right. I agree. I think your best chance of having an interaction with one of these creatures is to just go out and enjoy nature and be a part
Yes,
of nature and be
yes,
yourself. And I think that they're curious. I think they're curious like we are.
they are.
And if they see you out there just, sitting around the fire, having a good time, laughing, joking, they're going to come up and say, "What's so funny?
Right.
What are they
Exactly.
doing over there? What those hairless Bigfoot doing over there?"
You're not chasing Bigfoot is not the way is not the way.
Yeah, I've always
It's
said, like
not.
if I'm going out hunting, the last thing I do is go out there and start beating on trees and screaming and hooting and hollering. You
I know.
know, you go
I
out there and you
know.
be quiet and you listen and you kind of become one with the woods and things like that
Right.
to let
Right.
to let the woods calm down.
Yes.
And you know, I think that's the way that and I hate to even say, like hunting or researching or whatever you want to call it. I don't think it's really hunting. I don't know anybody that goes out. I know there are. I don't know anybody personally that goes out there with the intent to harm these creatures.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but hunting ter- in the terms of
Like
looking for it.
searching.
Yes. If you're going out there and the more you're moving around, the more that you are sneaking around or whatever, that's going to put any creature that's in the woods on edge.
Right.
So just go out there and be yourself.
Exactly.
Enjoy nature, enjoy the woods, enjoy the sounds, and let them come to you. That's
You
my
have
philosophy.
you have to be open to it. You have to be open.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. So let me ask you this. If you had the opportunity and this Umber, is that what his name was?
Yes.
Come up to your window and wanted to sit down at your table, would you let
Absolutely.
him?
Absolutely.
Wow. Are there any groups in your area that go out looking for Sasquatch?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever contacted any of them? Not to have them come out and because you have a relationship with this creature,
Right.
not to come out to your property, but just to maybe find out, what they're experiencing in your area?
Not I don't know anyone exactly in my area. Down in the Red River Gorge area, Charlie Raymond is the head of their group there for Kentucky. And I have talked to him about it. And he interviewed me once.
So does he know where, like, the area that you're talking about then?
Sort of.
Okay.
He probably lives about 60 miles from me.
Okay.
So,
Because it sounds like the situation that you have, I don't want anybody going out there and interrupting that.
no,
So people
I wouldn't
don't
allow it.
try to contact me to find out any details. I don't even know the exact details.
Right. I don't give it. I don't, because that's the last thing in the world that I want. I want to share my story and have people believe it or not, but I don't want interference. I won't have it.
Right. Right.
You know, it took a long time to develop the trust and the relationship that I have. And I would never do anything to jeopardize that.
I completely understand that. And like we said before we went on the air, that's why we're not giving out your last name or,
Right.
um, what town you live in or anything like that.
Right.
So people don't ask. I don't know.
Right. Right.
Well, Janet, um, that's amazing. That is freaking amazing.
No, I'm
Um,
glad that you think so. I do. I
yeah,
find it amazing every day.
I honestly, I would love to have that kind of interaction though.
Most people would.
Yeah.
It it's so unusual. Now, I know that I've read books about people that have my situation, that have it, a habitat situation. Christopher Noel, I think he lives in Vermont or Maine. He wrote a book that was totally about that, and it was so interesting. And I thought, wow, there are people like me that have these lifelong maybe interactions. And I think these Bigfoot have always lived here.
So
I think they
you're on the
probably,
same, like in the same, on the same land that you had that trackway with your grandparent?
yes.
Oh, wow. So it could have
Oh yeah,
been,
yeah.
that could have been Umber's grandpa that made that trackway the first time.
It absolutely could have.
Wow.
And as a child, I was always all over the farm. They may have watched me, all of my childhood.
Right. Oh, wow. Does anybody else in your family have experiences?
My kids, I wouldn't say they don't have experiences like I do, but they're total believers. In fact, my after they realized, especially my son, realized that, we really did have Bigfoots here. He's written 2 books now. And one of one of his books, his first book was all about portals.
Really?
I've seen a portal here. So it was my love of Bigfoot has really opened their lives up as well.
Yeah. Sounds like I need to have your son on the show.
He'd love it. He's done podcast.
Absolutely. We'll talk about that after we stop recording here.
Okay.
Well, Janet, I really do appreciate you coming on Myths, Monsters, and Mullets, and to the Cryptic Creature Show, fellows. Thank you for recommending Janet as a guest because this has been a fascinating encounter.
Those guys my daughter had been talking to those guys for, I don't know, a year or two. We go to all the Crypticon and a lot of the conventions, and she would talk to them, and every time she would say, "You need to talk to my mom. She's got a really interesting story." But it just never worked out until this past November it was at Crypticon. And she said, she said, "You need to go and talk to these guys." And I did. And then I was on their show, and then they recommended me to several other people, but they were great.
Yeah. Yeah. Cryptic Creature Show was the first show that I ever went on.
I love those guys.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been on their show twice.
Mm.
Great guys. They're, I try to recommend all my friends, and they're ones that I mention quite often is Cryptic Creatures Show. So yeah. Well, Janet, if you ever have any more face-to-face encounters with Umber, let me know. Shoot me an email, and maybe we can have you come back on.
All right. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure. And if you've had a paranormal encounter, or maybe Bigfoot walks through your backyard and speaks in your head, you can email me at mythsandmullets@gmail.com, and maybe you can be a guest on the show. Until next time, I'll talk to you later. Gotta go. And that's it for tonight. Make sure you're checking out the description on this episode for any links associated with the guest. And if you've had a paranormal encounter you'd like to share, you can email me at mythsandmullets@gmail.com. Good night, everyone.
Shadow in the pines lurking in the dusky air. Bigfoot stomps through the woods like he don't care. Lights in the sky flash green then blue. Aliens descending with a secret or two. Whispers in the breeze, cold fingers down your spine. Ghosts in the graveyard, twisting through time. Eyes wide open in the dead of night. The myths and monsters giving one hell of a fright. Oh, Myths, Monsters, and Mullets podcast, spinning wild tales of a future and a past. Hosted by John Methenkamp's fiery soul. He takes us where the wild unknown flows. Oh, Myths, Monsters, and Mullets podcast, spinning wild tales of a future and a past. Hosted by John Methenkamp's fiery soul. He takes us where the wild unknown flows. Down by the bayou, you hear a raspy growl. Swamp gas glowing as the coyotes howl. A UFO